All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the next race of the Final Fantasy I Total Chaos 4 tournament. Here we've got a showdown between Canucker and Poorscythe. Both of these two people are 1-1 in their prospect poll right now, and so both of them are trying to get their second win to see who can come out of this on top of the winning record. At the moment, see a little menuing early on. We're going to get some equipment glitching of the knight's armor onto the glove slot of all four of our characters and make an additional one that they can sell later on for 18,000 gil.
Yeah, the great thing with the knight's armor is not only is it a huge defense boost early on, we'll basically make sure that we take very little damage from enemy packs, but at the same time it does sell for 18,000, so it is a great source of gil early on to fund our adventures.
And if you've never seen this game, let me tell you about adventures. You never know what you're going to get with this run, generally speaking. We'll see Poorscythe here making his way up north, up to find Filthy Mutt Garland. You'll notice that they'll probably encounter a number of enemies on the world map here. The encounter rate is relatively high in this game compared to some of its successors, and is not manipulatable like a number of the later titles as well.
Alright, that's Poorscythe into the Chaos Shrine. Chaos Shrine has a couple enemy formations that are rather annoying to deal with. Undead can paralyze you. Wolves are hard to run away from. He's going to be picking up from this chest here a leather cap, and we're going to be using the equipment glitch here to turn that leather cap into a judgment staff on all our characters. The judgment staff, when used as an item, will cast flare, and it also has a pretty decent attack boost for us right now, which will allow our characters to do about 100 damage a hit.
Yeah, one thing to note, I guess, about the game just generally in a mechanical standpoint, if you're familiar with the series, you know, typically you have all of these games where you get like massive amounts of HP and you deal tons of damage late in the game. And in this game, like, values are relatively low for quite a long time. And so 100 damage doesn't sound like a whole lot in the grand scheme of a Final Fantasy title, but in this game, it's actually quite a bit of damage.
Alright, so that's Poorscythe to Garland at 240. Connector's coming up to Garland himself. Garland, as a fight, just takes a couple physical attacks to down. He only has slightly over 200 HP. You can kill him in 3 to 4 hits, depending on lucky crits.
See Poorscythe talking to Sarah, the girl he just rescued here. He's actually going to give us an item that we won't use until basically the end of the game. But she gives us this loot that'll allow us to get into the part of the Chaos Shrine that we need to at the very end.
Interesting to note, if you try and leave without talking to her, the game forces you back. It's faster to just walk up and talk to her than it is to go to the door, because when you go to the door, you take this really slow walking animation to get back and talk to her.
This game has a pretty big like open world feel to it, but if you notice here, like for instance with this bridge that the Cornelians are constructing, it does quite a bit of job of keeping some areas restricted so that your exploration is kind of limited for quite a bit of the game. So you kind of like have lesser options to search for where you need to be going and what you need to be finding, which is a pretty cool way that they designed the game originally, I suppose.
Yeah, the whole exploration of the world is locked behind fetch quests. So in order to access additional areas of the world, you basically need to complete fetch quests. Although it is possible to do some things out of order and kind of break that sequence.
I don't know exactly how much higher the encounter rate is in the forest than in the fields, but it is beneficial to, be walking on non-forested tiles as much as possible. But there are instances like now where Poorscythe is, where the movement is just so much greater to avoid it. So it's walking through it is really, kind of inconsequential.
Yeah, I have the spreadsheet saved somewhere, so I don't know the exact values themselves off by heart, but I know the forest has the highest encounter rate of any overworld tile in the game. The marsh tiles, on the other hand, have the lowest encounter rate of any overworld tile. It's also interesting to note that dock tiles produce no encounters, and so you'll see runners dock early and get off their boat, or walk on dock tiles to avoid encounters, and they do that just because you do not generate threat on them.
So Poorscythe's here. He's just buying some stuff in Provoca, and now he's going to be fighting the pirate mob. Going to be defending with his knight and dropping his judgment staff to cast flare on all 9 of them. And although it's a long animation, it obviously makes short work of the entire mob. And now the pirate captain is going to see his true quality and offer him this ship in return for beating up his cronies.
Now, Poorscythe, to my understanding, does the black magic route. There is a route that requires you to get a specific drop from pirates, and that's the white mage route. There's 2 differences between the routes. Both routes basically use tier 2 black magic in order to kill unrunnable mobs throughout the game, but it's which character you use them on. So one route has the black mage actually learn the spells and cast them, and the other route has white mage get specific items that will cast them when used as an item. And one of those items you get from a drop from pirates, or you need to buy the item in the shop in order to glitch it. So that's a drop that you'll need to pay attention to on pirates if you get it or not. In the black magic route, it's not necessary, as you just buy the spells.
So Poorscythe here has been getting a couple Sahagin encounters, which are certainly runnable, but at this point in the game, and kind of, at a number of points in the run, they're really, really obnoxious encounters to try to flee from. So he was choosing to flee with 2 of his members and casting the Judgment Staff with the other 2. And actually, despite the long animation of the flare on the first Sahagin Chief encounter, certainly bailed him out after all of the flee attempts had failed.
Yeah, the boat generally also has a very, very low encounter rate. It's not uncommon to get no encounters from Provoca to the dock at Elfheim. Getting 3 on the sea is relatively unlucky for Poorscythe. The one encounter that you don't mind to see on the sea is Buccaneers, as you can outspeed them and run away from them very quickly, but Sahagins and Sharks are annoying with the current equipment that we have to escape from. Generally, you're better off just killing them.
You see Canucker sailing south here, not too far behind Poorscythe at this point in the run. Probably going to dip in and out of Elfheim here to reset his encounters whenever he gets close enough, as Poorscythe's making his way up and around to the Marsh Cave, but also getting completely obliterated by poison.
Yeah, having 3 characters poisoned is not a very good sign, especially if he keeps taking damage and doesn't run. Getting crit on the warrior is very unlucky for him. Although that does remove one of the poisons he needs to cure, he will have to revive his warrior and heal up. And normally you're going to do a menu where you heal to full before Pisco Demons, and provided he doesn't get poisoned again, he can just completely skip that menu and just do it along the way. Poorscythe with some bad encounter luck on his way to Marsh Cave, and Canucker seems to be catching up, taking full advantage of it. Canucker dropping his save before going into Marsh Cave. That puts him slightly behind, but Poorscythe with the early Marsh Cave encounter loses the lead to Canucker.
Yeah, like Double mentioned earlier, this is like the one dungeon, I guess I would call it, that, anticipating getting through with 1 or 0 encounters even is really not that uncommon. It's really sweet when it happens, but the encounter rate's so low here.
My PB attempts would beg to differ, but yes, it is entirely possible to get through this entire dungeon with no encounters.
Yeah, no one ever PBs with good encounter luck, but it can happen.
My PB attempts, I always joke that 0 encounter Marsh Cave is a myth, but it is most definitely not a myth. Like, it is entirely possible.
So there's a forced encounter on this tile that both of them are getting with Pisco Demons. Same exact strategy as earlier with the pirates. They're going to be dropping the Judgment Staff on them. This is one of the encounters that for the remainder of the run, anywhere it can be encountered must be defeated and cannot be fled from, unfortunately. It's kind of an annoying group, honestly.
The crown is a key item along a very long series of fetch quests in order to progress through the world. So we're forced to come in here and pick it up. The crown will allow us to go to the next boss, Astos, and pick up his key item.
All right, Poorscythe had a really friendly exit there. Kind of made up for his kind of brutalizing entry down to the Pisco Demons fight, at least. So now he's slightly behind Canucker as Canucker gets another encounter, and Poorscythe's kind of cruising his way across the world map now. So this is the Astos fight. Going to be dropping a couple attacks here with his 2 fighting characters and Judgment Staves with the 2 magic characters. Astos does have the death spell, which can really put a danker on some of your experience gained, but hopefully everything goes well for both of our runners here. Canucker with a relatively good Astos fight there. Not too much really happened, and his characters all survived, so that's really awesome. No weird item drops.
Yeah, there's a rare item that Astos can drop that is extremely unfortunate. It's the Mithril Sword, and if he drops it, it will make your equipment glitch menus extremely difficult, as the Mithril Sword automatically defaults to the top item.
And Poorscythe actually got the death on the warrior, but it missed. So his warrior gonna make it through this one, it looks like.
So it's interesting to note that there's a tight EXP route at this point in the game. You're basically required to have at least 3 Pisco Demons in the forced encounter in Marsh Cave. If you only have 2, you need Astos to kill off either your warrior or your thief, or your white mage, so that your black mage gains the necessary EXP to hit level 8 and learn the level 3 black magic spells. If that doesn't happen, the runners are basically forced to kill an encounter on the overworld to make up that XP.
This will also be one of the key reasons for really the only level grind in the entire run as well.
Yeah, there's one more grind later. The only reason that we grind at all is to hit the level we need to learn specific spells. As soon as we have that level, we really don't care about XP after that. The equipment glitch takes care of all our stats and everything else that we need.
Poorscythe just inviting some more wolves to his petting zoo over here. He's been hanging out with a lot of them this run so far. Meanwhile, Canucker is trying to buy his Fyra and Thundara spells on his Black Mage. This will help him out on a ton of unrunnable encounters throughout the remainder of the run.
Canucker's also going to take the safety strat, run to the item shop here and buy gold needles. Petrification is a nasty status and can potentially full party wipe you if your entire party becomes petrified. Buying as many as you can is a nice safety strat in case that happens later in the run.
Looks like Poorscythe is going to pick up a couple needles as well. Actually grabbed a few more antidotes, it looks like, after he had that pretty nasty scorpion encounter that he had to drop 3 on because of.
Yeah, that's a nice adjustment from Poorscythe, knowing that he wasted a good chunk of his antidote supply. Knowing to pick some more up at the same time was a very good adjust on his side.
Yeah, and although, as Double mentioned, the petrification can be crippling to your run, poison is certainly a more common status ailment in this game. So having extra antidotes on hand is really, really useful after he's already expended so many.
Yeah, buying the gold needles is more a race strat than anything else. Any runner doing PB attempts will just completely skip them and pray that they don't get petrified. And there are like a couple backups in case one character does. If your entire party gets petrified, though, you just generally reset at that point.
So Canucker is demonstrating some more of the lovely encounters you can get on the sea with his last Sahagins and now some Big Eyes. Big Eyes have a really long animation in Gaze, which is an attack that a number of enemies in this game can use, but paralyzing your enemies disallows them from attempting to flee on their turn, which can cause the fight to go on and on if you don't kill it. Poorscythe made his way to everyone's favorite FF1 waifu, Matoya, who's missing her eye, and she rewards us with the Jolt Tonic, which we're going to give to another sickly individual on our series of fetch quests here in this region of the world.
It's interesting to note as well, those brooms that you see in Matoya's cave, they do move around, and it is entirely possible for them to block your passage through the door like an NPC. I've seen it happen on numerous occasions, and it is quite troll if it happens.
Poorscythe getting some Sahagins on his way downtown to Elfheim. Doesn't get the flea, so it looks like one of his mages is going to be dropping a flare on their faces.
I'm not sure why he's dropping a flare here. I think that's a bit of a mistake on his part. He has Thundara. He learned the black magic spell.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. And he's ethered his mages as well.
Yeah, it's important to note that the level 3 black magic spells, Fyra and Thundara, as well as the level 4 black magic spell, Blizzara, have a much shorter cast animation time than Flare does, and it's by about 6 seconds. So it's 2 seconds to cast Thundara, and it's 8 seconds to cast Flare. So that's 6 seconds basically wasted on Poorscythe's side.
So this is the Prince Elf. We give him the Jolt Tonic, and he's going to be all right, and we're rewarded with a Mystic Key. Canucker here, meanwhile, has made up quite a bit of ground with a really, really nice travel of the ocean, but struggling to get in the door there, but finally gets through and bridges the gap of time quite a bit after Poorscythe did get the Sahagin encounter.
And so coming up here is a very, very important menu. We're going to pick up the Bronze Hammer and the Mithril Gloves. We're going to turn the Bronze Hammer into Thieves' Armlets. Or sorry, it's the Bronze Armlet and the Mithril Hammer. So the Mithril Hammer is being turned into Thieves' Armlets. Thieves' Armlets give you a huge agility boost as well as a defense boost over the equipment that you currently have. The agility boost is the main thing. So the way running away from encounters works in this game is there's a formula for it that takes into effect your agility and to a lesser part your intelligence. And so we want to put as much agility boosting equipment on our characters as possible to increase the chances that we run away from enemies. On the other hand, the bronze armlet is going to turn into a Sage's Staff. The Sage's Staff gives a little bit of an intelligence boost, again, to help flee chances. And as well, we're going to be using that Sage's Staff later in the run on our Black Mage as a means to give him the necessary intelligence he needs to kill more powerful enemies with the Black Magic spells.
And you'll notice right away, Poorscythe got yet another Sahagin encounter, but because he has just equipped all the Thieves' Armlets, doesn't even try to Q any kind of magic at all, and just goes for the full flee on all 4 characters, which obviously if you get the flee is much quicker than killing them, but it's also way easier to input by just holding the L and R shoulder buttons than it is rather than individually inputting fleas and magic from different characters.
Yeah, your odds of running away from Sahagins with the Thieves' Armlets go up almost tenfold. This is a nasty ambush for Canucker. 6 Sahagins, 2 big guys. The big guys have gaze. That's an extremely long animation, and also will paralyze a character, making your running away attempts or killing attempts much less.
He may want to consider dropping a Thundara here if doesn't get the flee on this attempt. But his Black Mage comes through in the clutch.
Yeah, even for me...
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no worries. Even for me, like in that situation, I would have queued up a Thundara and tried to flee with the White Mage, just because you never know.
Yeah, the fewer characters you have available to attempt the flee, obviously the lesser chances you have of actually successfully fleeing are. And if your Black Mage is one of the unparalyzed characters, sometimes just queuing them up with some magic is a good backup just in case, because the time loss is minimal anyway.
Despite having enough agility to flee from them, you don't always have enough agility to outspeed them in combat. Which means that while you're attempting to flee, they may just get more turns and paralock you, especially with 2 big guys. And having all 4 characters paralyzed is a massive time loss, as you are just sitting there taking damage until the paralyzed status wears off.
Had that happen in one of my tournament races. Got the ambush. All 4 paralyzed on the first round. Good stuff. And you're just kind of like left helpless at that point. Like you can't really do anything to make better that awful situation.
Yeah, best case, you lose 30 seconds to a minute. Worst case, they just pound your characters so you die. And that's game over.
Poorscythe just made it to my favorite split in his entire run, which is obviously the Narek split. Narek is this NPC that Canucker is about to speak with, who has an addiction to explosive devices. He's going to use it to blow up some land bridge here so that we can sail through the canal that it creates.
Boom! Like happy festival fireworks, yeah.
Waka would be so happy. I truly didn't know that he had a name until I was watching Poorscythe's run and I saw his Narek split, and I had no idea what the split was for until he got there. And the legend of Narek was born.
So another very important menu is coming up for Poorscythe. I see him pausing. He's going for 15 puzzle. So 15 puzzle is an optional minigame you can do. Poorscythe is going to be aiming to win with a time between 30 seconds and 1 minute. Doing so will give him a 1 in 6 chance of winning the emergency exit item as a prize. This is important because the emergency exit is basically a free teleport out of a dungeon, and he will be using it, if he does get it, in the dungeon coming up to save about 2 minutes, having to walk back out of the dungeon. It is, however, a 1 in 6 chance, and it does take between 30 seconds and a minute to get. So if he fails to get it, he will have just thrown away 35 seconds. He does get it, though.
He got the exit. That's awesome. I haven't seen anybody get one yet in the tournament.
I got 1 out of my four races.
And I don't know, has Leo gotten one at all?
Leo's gotten 2.
He's gotten both.
He's gotten 2.
Oh my gosh.
So the menu you just saw Poorscythe do, and the one that Canucker is about to do, is very important. So we're going to buy the steel gloves here. And the steel gloves, when equipment glitch, transform into the barbarian sword. The barbarian sword is the most powerful sword in the game. Normally, you obtain it from the strongest form of Chronodia in the final bonus dungeon, Labyrinth of Time. It has an attack power 2.5 times that of the Excalibur, and it lays waste to everything you hit with it. By equipping that on our warrior and our thief, you're going to see the amount of damage we're outputting with physical attacks go through the roof. This sword is the key to why 80% in PSP is as fast as it is, because we can just decimate bosses with it.
So this is the first of 2 visits to the Cavern Over the Earth that we're going to see our runners make. This is where the emergency exit's going to give Poorscythe quite an edge over an average exit for Canucker, because when he finishes the vampire fight on basement 3 here, he's going to be just warping right on out, while Canucker's going to have to manually, imagine walking in 2019, walk out of the cavern.
Yeah, the time that you save with emergency exit is, like, it's hard to quantify because it depends on the RNG that you would have gotten when you left. But I would say on average it saves anywhere between 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes 15 seconds, depending on your luck. And on average, we call it 2 minutes.
And it could
with
very easily save
seconds.
way more than that too. Like if you were going to have a below average exit, which is not uncommon at all, then it saves even more. So it's quite a substantial shift, especially in a race.
Yeah, I know personally versus PB it saves 45 seconds, but I had a ridiculous exit in my PB, so it's hard to like quantify that time save. But generally, on average, like I've run this game enough to have a good gist of like where the median times are for exiting, and it's about 2 minutes to exit on average. And so that's the amount of time you save with an opportunity cost of anywhere between 30 seconds and a minute. It's still a minute net time save, which is absolutely huge.
So here he is dropping his exit, and he's just going to be warping on out. After he takes down the vampire is in front of a chest which has a ruby in it that we're going to give to a giant that wants to eat it.
Yeah, the great thing for Poorscythe here too is that he was already in the lead when he popped that emergency exit, so that just gives him at least a 2-minute buffer.
And we'll know exactly how much based on how long it takes Canucker to get out, basically. Yeah, some of these bats, I call them the FIFA bats because they just like go out of their way to get in your way, and they just like, block whatever your goal is like that very, very well.
The running joke when I run this game is I channel my inner ludicrous whenever I'm in here. Tell the bats, move, bat, get out the way.
That is awful, but also amazing.
Get out the way, bat, get out the way.
I want you to get a t-shirt that just says that on it. Wear it to limit break. So you can see Canucker's already spent over a minute, and he's about halfway through B2 on his exit. So he's still got another. In fairness, floor 1, B1 is a very, very short floor, but just to kind of put into perspective how much the emergency exit's going to kind of put Poorscythe ahead a little bit here.
Yeah, so the whole reason for the gap for those new or just joined the stream is Poorscythe played 15 puzzle and got a 1 in 6 emergency exit drop from completing 15 puzzle, which gave him a free teleport out of Cavern of Earth. That is an item that Canucker did not get, and so it gave Poorscythe a significant lead. They were pretty neck and neck up until the point that Poorscythe used his emergency exit. No, by no means is this race over with that emergency exit. There is so much RNG in this run that emergency exit, you can still fight back against it.
Yeah, we've already seen quite a few races with much larger gaps than this come really close or even overtaken. How far were you behind in your one win?
One of my wins was I was 3.5 minutes behind coming out of Ice Cave, and I managed to win.
Then even in our second race and first race, you came from behind by what weren't like huge leads, but still like this is definitely a game where, you know, a 3-minute lead in an 1.5-hour game is not nearly as large as it sounds on paper.
Yeah,
Because
I think in my race,
it's not just like fully execution based. So
yeah, the second race I had against you, I was down 3 minutes at airship. I think managed to claw that one back. I had some help from Tiamat, mind you, but it's definitely possible.
So now Poorscythe's making his way back in B3. This time he's actually going to go through where he fought the vampire and to the exit at the top of the screen and do 2 more floors to find his Lich boss waiting for him.
There is unfortunately no way to skip the Crystal Guardian bosses. You need to fight all 4 of them to access the Chaos Shrine. However, you do not need to fight them in order. You can fight them in any order you so choose, provided that Lich is the first, because you require Lich to get access to the canoe.
I always feel bad for the lesser tiger enemy. Like, I feel like their name is just like, you know, always putting them down. You're never gonna make it, man. You're just a lesser tiger.
I mean, that's why they try hard and crit you for 40 all the time. Like, I get scared when I see those guys because they crit fairly frequently and they crit hard.
Yeah, you may notice that Canucker does have his warrior KO'd right now. Aside from the fact that he's dealing with some paralysis, typically that's not a huge disadvantage just because the warrior has the worst ability to flee from battles, especially compared to the other 3. And there will be a couple points in the run where we'll just leave him KO'd for quite a while.
Yeah, judgment staffing in that situation was probably the best option.
Yeah, the paralysis can be really brutalizing as far as time in an encounter is concerned. Poorscythe making it to B5 here, which is the final and one of the shortest floors in the dungeon. I don't know if it's shorter than B1, but it's not much longer if it is longer. It's going to take a safety save here. He does have the chance to be hit with a Blizzara on his entire party, which can end your run immediately, ultimately, if you get unlucky enough. So we'll see how his Lich fight goes.
He got lucky. I was kind of curious if Poorscythe would do anything fancy for Lich, given his lead. I know he's a proponent of Dragon Armor strats. Dragon Armor will reduce the amount of damage you take from Blizzara enough to survive one if you get it. Additionally, he could have taken his Sage's Staff off the White Mage and threw an extra Barbarian Sword in case he underdamaged and Lich got Blizzara off. I have never run Link's Awakening. I've actually never run any of the Zelda games, although I should fix that and learn Link to the Past.
I try to get him to run Link to the Past all the time, but he's too cool. I don't know. He's running good games like Final Fantasy 2 or something. I don't know.
I'm playing too much FF14, that's the problem.
Yeah, that's actually true. If you guys ever are like wondering what Double Drop is doing at any minute, in his life, being at work or being on Final Fantasy 14 are like the only two options. There's no sleep, there's no food.
Nope.
That's it.
Feel like Cartman from the South Park episode.
The WoW episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's you IRL. So you can see Canucker's starting his Lich fight now. He's actually like we mentioned, he's not completely out of the race at all. Like he's really not that far behind despite the early exit from Poorscythe that he was able to get. Canucker also with a really nice Lich fight here. Takes him down nice and easy.
Poorscythe's failed run attempt against these 6 Sahagins is going to set him back at least 25 seconds. Just from the animation time of them all getting attacks off.
It's just kind of like the boating music is so calming and pleasant. And then you just get ambushed by 8 Sahagins and 2 big eyes out of nowhere, and like all of the pleasantry of the music is just stolen away from you.
You go to warp, and they all fly off your ship. That's how you run away. And just step on the gas.
So now Poorscythe's going to one of my favorite locations in the game right now. It's called Crescent Lake because, get this, it's a lake that is shaped like a crescent.
What? Really?
A crescent moon shaped lake that they have named Crescent Lake.
My mind has just been blown.
I
don't know if I can. I don't know if I can continue. I don't know if I can continue on in my day now that I've learned it. I need to stop and absorb this information. That's some big brain naming on the people who made this town. And so Poorscythe here is making themselves some black garbs. Black garbs are an agility increase from the Thieves' Armlets that we previously had. This will give him much better run chances against the enemies we've currently been facing, and improved run chances against the enemies we will be facing.
So like most nice villages, if you speak to the right person, they'll give you a canoe so that you can get the heck out of there and just paddle your way on out. So Poorscythe gets the canoe from this friendly little bugger, and he's gonna sail around here and make his way up north to another area where he'll be canoeing to the Ice Cave.
I definitely think Crescent Lake is a Canadian town, because that's really the only place you can expect random people to give you a canoe for absolutely no reason. So both runners are working their way towards what is arguably the most dangerous dungeon in the game, Cavern of Ice. Cavern of Ice is scary for so many reasons. The monsters that you can encounter there, several packs can just outright kill you. There are several unrunnables that just waste your time. Paralysis is common, there's a lot of undead. It's just a nasty dungeon. So we're going to see how each runner does in this place. Poorscythe having a nice walk to open it up. 3 Pisco Demons, so first encounter, first unrunnable. So Pisco Demons are required to be killed by the Judgment Staff with the equipment that Poorscythe currently has on. He put the Lust Dagger, which is an agility boost, on his Black Mage. Doing so drops the amount of intelligence that he has to a point where Thundara will no longer kill them.
He's getting pestered by these pesky Pisco demons right now, though. You know what I'm saying? 2 in a row? Be careful with them.
That's what happens. You do Sage of Staff strats, and then you get Undead, and then you do Lust Dagger strats, and you get Pisco Demons. The game knows. It always knows what you're up to. Can't trick it.
So now Canucker's got his canoe, and meanwhile Poorscythe's being ambushed by some raids and a Spectre. He's going to be making, hopefully, his way out of that fight, as Canucker's going to head back to his boat and sail up to the canoe path and follow in Poorscythe's
Oh
there's your
boy.
favorite person in the world.
Oh boy. That was very scary on Poorscythe's end. The White Dragon is one of the deadly monsters in here, and it was an ambush too. So White Dragon knows an ability called Ice Storm, and one Ice Storm would entirely wipe his party there. The fact that the White Dragon decided to physical on the ambush rather than Ice Storm him is very lucky for Poorscythe.
He also knows when you're on a good run. Make sure that puts a stop to that. Poorscythe here getting some ambush paralysis. He's got his Black Mage has been okay so far. Hopefully he can he's get his fire off, and looks like he's going to be all right. But that is a kind of a frightening looking encounter too. Again, he probably will not be bringing back his warrior here. He's just going to leave him down because he needs him KO'd pretty shortly anyway.
Yeah, for on Poorscythe's end, his breathing is definitely intensifying in this dungeon right now. Alright, so despite the numerous scares that he's had, he's managed to get himself down to the Evil Eye encounter with no real hiccups. So in this fight, we need the Evil Eye to kill off the Thief. We need both mages alive so we can grind out some XP on him. This just will expedite the process. He's either baiting out a Gaze on his Thief or a Thundara, which his mages can survive. He's then going to defend with the Black Mage and attack with the White Mage. So he's going to be grinding to level 17 plus 1 level. Basically, he has routed out the amount of XP he gets after this grind and before he does his shopping to make sure that he will have enough XP to hit level 19. So both his mages have glitched Lust Daggers, which are another bonus dungeon equipment. They give it a massive agility boost, which is why we want them in the first place. It increases our fleet chances, but it's a pretty powerful dagger, regardless, and does enough damage to kill monsters, which is a nice benefit, or a nice side effect of it also. This party comp is not the only viable party comp, but it is the fastest party comp as far as any percent goes, and so you will never see their party comp change.
Poorscythe's got the XP that he wants from his Evil Eyes, and he's going to be taking off. Canucker's got the Cockatrice ambush. This could be bad news for him. He's getting peppered with paralysis and asleep. Chooses to try to flee with the Black Mage, and he's going to get stoned across the board and have to reset, unfortunately.
Yeah, in that situation, trying to flee with the mage was a mistake. You just want to kill them off and get out of the encounter, heal up. That's unfortunate too, because that sets them back 3 or 4 floors.
Poorscythe coming to the southern tip of this continent here, and he's going to be just waltzing around this corner and picking up his airship with the levy stone that he picked up in the ice cavern right before his evil eye grind. This is going to allow him to fly wherever he wants and pick up a couple items that he's going to need, go to a couple places that he needs to visit in the area. Starting with the incredible labyrinth that is the Citadel of Trials.
So the reason that we do class change in 80%, yes, it takes time. It's like an optional side quest, and it does take some time, but it allows us to learn the spell Teleport, which arguably makes up all that time that we lose just to be able to warp out of dungeons. As well, the class change itself does give us some extra stats on our characters, and potentially will allow the ninja to learn haste, which is pretty powerful in its own right.
So Poorscythe makes it into the Citadel while Canucker is making it to the drop point that he's going to crack through the ice. Gets another pack of 5 cockatrices. Looks like he's going to try to flee from them. Gets the flee. Fortunately, he wasn't ambushed this time. The Citadel is actually relatively simple. General rule of thumb is to just, if there's only one warp, to pick that warp, and if there's multiple warps, pick the one that's lower on the screen.
Is that how that works? I actually had no idea. I just picked the ones I knew were right.
That's what I wrote in my notes when I learned this game. It's like, if there's 2, pick the bottom one.
PIL. I wonder if that logic applies to Sabrina's gym in Pokemon.
So this is a forced encounter on this tile that Poorscythe's going to have to hit 2 times with some nightmares, and he's just going to drop some attacks on them and dispatch them. So a couple more fights here for Canucker. He should be wrapping up his leveling in a little bit here. You know, Poorscythe getting hit with an ambush. He's going to have to get out of there, and he's going to have another fixed fight. but not until after he picks up the rat tail that's in the chest here on the left of the throne. Canucker finishes grind, drops in. Did not Phoenix down his thief, but looks like he's going to now that he realizes that he was down. Potion him up a little bit and then make his way out of the cavern. Here's the dragon zombie that Poorscythe has to fight. Kills it there. And takes the exit on out of the Citadel of Trials. Poorscythe is heading back through the desert here. He's going to get to his airship, and he's going to be sailing a little bit south and then quite a bit west to find Bahamut's cave, the Cave of Dragons, and evolve his party members here. Meanwhile, Canucker is canoeing back to his ship, and he's going to make his way with the levy stone down to the airship below. There we go. So now we've evolved our party members here. Bahamut has bestowed some fantastic upgrades to our group. And they're going to be heading on out here, looking all swag-like. Meanwhile, Canucker is heading into the desert to get his airship. Unfortunately, gets a hill gig us on the final step before entering. Poorscythe's going to be visiting this like invisible-ish desert town called the Desert Caravan. He's going to be buying a fairy in a bottle and some Giant's tonics. He doesn't actually need 11 Giant's tonics, but it's just a quick menu either way. He's got the ever-elusive Hellhound Ogre Mage overworld encounter here on the way back to the airship. You don't see this in this area very often, but it is an unrunnable encounter, unfortunately. Yeah, I'll tell you what, when you watch someone that flies the airship in a different path than you do, it is so disorientating.
Yeah, sometimes you learn new and easier landmarks doing it though.
Yeah, it's just like funny. Like you just like watch someone, you're like expecting the airship to go one direction, and you see it go a different direction, and you're just like, "What's going on?" And but you know that like obviously the people know what it is they're looking for, like what their visual cues are, etc.
Yeah, I think Poorscythe uses the same visual cues that I do, for the most part.
I learned mine from Kibetha, which is probably a mistake, because Kibetha.
The shots. Poor Kibetha.
I'm just kidding. We love Kibetha.
No, all my cues are visual cues. I don't use audio ones.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of difficult to do. I guess you could use the song technically, but you would have to be certain that you started moving and turned exactly this, like very precisely, I guess. Kib everything is better than double anything, so I agree with that sentiment. Poorscythe dropping some potions on his party members here, just in case he gets an encounter on his way through the end of the fire cave here. This dungeon is everybody's favorite game of the floor is not lava, where it's lava. You can't get random encounters on the lava tiles, thus it's much faster to just cruise across them and avoid normal tiles as much as possible. It is still certainly viable that you can get a random encounter while you're traversing them, but it certainly mitigates the amount of encounters that you are likely to encounter. I think Poorscythe had one in the entire dungeon, which is not at all uncommon for Mount Gold.
Yeah, 1 encounter is pretty good. 2 is average. None is ideal. 3 or more is unfortunate.
Yeah, 3. I mean, really, even 2 is. 2 starts to get kind of obnoxious. Nice Merilith fight there. Canucker, meanwhile, has the party paralysis from the Mind Flayer, which is a really brutalizing fight.
Especially because the Mind Flayers can KO on hit. This is the one encounter in Citadel that can kill you. And normally you don't see it as such because it's rare to see in an ambush, but when you do get it, it is incredibly terrifying.
I don't know where his last save is, but
Not in here.
I was say I don't think he was gonna take a save in Citadel, unfortunately. Gets his White Mage back, gets the Judgment Staff off. We're going on, boys and girls. We are cruising for a bruising. Canucker dodging a bullet there. What an absolute legend.
Yeah, that's
nice.
Absolutely the correct play there. I was terrified that Canucker was going to try and flee with the White Mage, which would have been a large mistake, even with the Lust Dagger on the White Mage.
Poorscythe back in Melman. Now he's going to be getting Hilara on his White Mage, which will be super useful in basically obsolete potions for the remainder of the run. And also Teleport, which is going to save quite a bit of time in moving through the Shrunken Shrine and a couple of other areas that we can teleport out of and back to the world map. Canucker just looks at his party's levels and HP, and he's going to be taken off and head back to the airship so that he can get his Rat's Tail as well.
Yeah, that paralysis lock on Canucker probably cost him about another 2 minutes. Like, the gap is very significant at this point, and it's unfortunate because there's not much Canucker could have done in either of those situations.
This is actually a short cutscene you get when you enter the Shrunken Shrine, and you just mash on through it and it cancels it out. It's fantastic. There are 3 unrunnable encounters you can get here. The Water Elementals on their own, the Ghost, and the Sahagin Chief combinations. And each one requires a different black magic spell to dispatch.
The Sahagins naturally are weak to thunder, the Ghosts being undead are weak to fire, and Water Elementals, despite what you may think, are weak to ice, not thunder. Which is kind of counterintuitive, but that's what they're weak to.
And really, after you get your first unrunnable, the only thing that really sucks about the remainder of them is just if you get a different one and have to switch the position of your Black Mage's magic cursor, because otherwise you can just hold confirm. So notice now in this one he got the Ghost and had to pause briefly to switch from Thundar to Fyra. But otherwise they're probably some of the least punishing unrunnables in the game because you typically already have all of your party members queued on what they need to be.
This dungeon is a large part of the reason why we learned black magic spells, to be honest. Previous writes of the game had all characters have a barbarian staff on them, and we didn't learn any black magic at all. And so we would use the judgment staff, kill large unrunnable packs, and that is extremely slow. So getting packs of Sahagin, Prince in Chief, were 6 seconds more per encounter if you got them. Having the black magic lets you mitigate the time loss from these unrunnable encounters quite significantly.
Canucker's heading up to his caravan stop here. He's going to get the fairy bottle and some giant's tonics for himself. And Poorscythe's going to be grabbing the light axe here and doing a little bit of menuing on his characters. Get some survival vests.
As far as I'm aware, Canucker is playing this on emulator. Poorscythe, on the other hand, is on PSP console. It is important to note, however, for the console runners, they're playing it on a firmware modified console and loading an ISO of the game via custom firmware to play the game rather than use the UMD. And the reason for that and why we allow it is there were two versions of this game, the 20th anniversary FF1 PSP release, that came out for console. One was a digital download version, which is no longer available on the PSN, and the other was UMD. Now, the digital download works the same way that running a ISO on custom firmware does. UMD, on the other hand, has significantly longer loading times, and it costs you on average about 2 minutes extra just in loading times across the run. Because the digital download is no longer available on the PSN, we allow custom firmware and ISOs to run the game because a digital version of the game was once available, and it would not be fair that some runners on console would have it and others no longer have access.
Poorscythe here, getting another unrunnable. Fortunately, the Thundara is able to take out the ghost, so he doesn't have to do any extra magic menuing there, but he's been kind of getting peppered with them ever since he picked up his Rosetta Stone. Case in point. Canucker down to B4 now. B4 is like the friendliest floor in the entire dungeon, honestly, and it's almost entirely covered by lava tiles, so you don't really have to worry about the threat of encounters almost at all. Oh, but he gets one on the following floor. Got 2 Hill Gigas and a lizard. That's unfortunate, but quick flee. And now he's making his way left here, and he's going to head down to the following floor. Back in B4, which is really the last threatening floor for encounters, so hopefully he can make it through unscathed. While Poorscythe gets the unrunnable water elemental, so now he's had the trifecta. He's gotten every single unrunnable, a couple of them in multiple scenarios. Runners are both on the boss floors, though, right now. Poorscythe heading up. He's going to go up and then down and around. And he's going to be making his way to craft. Actually, very, very fitting, the Rosetta Stone actually teaches a language in this game, which, is exactly, more or less, what the Rosetta Stone in real life did, with written language. So, pretty fantastic parallel. It's kind of like it's almost as good of a name for an item as Crescent Lake is for a crescent-shaped lake. They did a really, really good job with naming stuff in this game.
I mean, it would be pretty bad if they named it Square Lake and it was a crescent-shaped lake.
Yeah, clearly it's named after the PC program Rosetta Stone to learn foreign language, not the actual Rosetta Stone that is in the British Museum in London, England. Clearly after the computer language program.
In the NES version of the game, it was just called Slab.
The slab. Oh no, that wasn't a bad question at all. That was actually a really interesting question. I don't think anyone's ever asked that, actually. The key items in this game are just kind of peculiar in general. Like, you give the rat's tail to Bahamut to get your party shifted into their next level of character types. It's kind of an interesting series of fetch quests. You give a ruby to the giant who just munches on it. So the fetch quests and key items in this game are pretty interesting across the board.
Yeah, the rat's tail is supposed to be a sign of courage, and it's kind of a joke that larger animals are terrified of smaller ones, like the whole elephant is scared of the mouse thing. Dragons are scared of rats. So by obtaining the rat's tail, you've shown courage in obtaining the one thing that Bahamut is terrified of. As Nikki mentioned in chat, Poorscythe definitely has the opportunity of getting a sub 130 time on his current pace.
Canucker's gonna be buying his Healara for his white mage here. Or his white wizard, I should say. And also going to be getting his haste and teleport for his black mage. Or he's already gotten haste, my bad. Just teleport. Haste is with Blizzard. Canucker heading over to the mermaid and gets blocked by the goalie Future Trunks over here. Holy crap, man. He thought Cell was coming and just stepped right in, intervened, was like, you ain't going nowhere, bro.
Well, that robot on Poorscythe's side is as far away as he could possibly be. That's rather annoying. You can definitely risk getting an extra encounter if you have to walk all the way over there to talk to him.
Oh, Canucker accidentally tried to flee from a ghost encounter. Again, this is an unrunnable encounter. Hopefully he realizes and busts out his magic. Yeah, it looks like he's figured out that he just preemptively hit R1 and L1. We've all made the mistake before. Sometimes you just get the encounter and you start holding the shoulder buttons, anticipating trying to run from the encounter, and forget about the potential of an unrunnable. It happens every now and then, not so big of an issue as long as it's not a brutalizing unrunnable like the ghosts are.
Yeah, doing that against Sahagan Prince and Chiefs in a 9-pack can be very unfortunate.
He's going to drop the Rosetta Stone over to this guy that's looks like Edward hanging out in a cemetery, because that's where people study languages, and makes sense. And what's even better is after you give him the Rosetta Stone, you can speak Lefenian too. Which is convenient because we need to go to Lefenia and try to speak with the people that live there. Oh, okay, that makes way more sense. He mistook gravestones for the Rosetta Stone. I can see it, looking at a rock with etched writing on it. That makes perfect sense on it.
Yeah, they're both slabs, right?
I'm totally sold on this this new FF1 game theory. It makes sense. Squall is dead. The Rosetta Stone is in a graveyard.
Maybe the Rosetta Stone is Wall's tombstone.
You're just getting wild now, man. You settle down, Double.
It's the big brain
Settle
theory.
down. Canucker making it down to the second floor here. I think I don't know where he does his axe menu, but we'll
Looks
see.
like 2F. The 4X axe menu is very uncommon.
Yeah,
Only a couple runners
I've
do it.
only seen a couple of people do it, and then usually they're some like the top runners tend to. Didn't you say it saves like a few steps across the screen or something like that?
It saves a few steps, but the quality of encounters on that floor is worse, arguably. It's definitely like a calculated risk doing it on 4F. You could save time or you could lose time. And whatever time you save in less steps is, I mean, very insignificant overall.
So Poorscythe speaks to the Lufenian he needs to, and now he's going to be heading to the Mirage Tower, where he's going to meet up with the robot's buddy that he met earlier. But not until he gets ambushed by the Wolves of Winterfell here, which can actually be a really long encounter if they all cast their Ice Storm attack.
Could also be potentially dangerous if you haven't healed up.
Canucker is putting on his survival vests on his characters here. All Poorscythe's really missing at this point is he's going to be getting a Gigan. Earlier, never mind, he already did the Gigan Axe and Ribbons, so he's pretty set for a while.
He has everything he needs. He just needs to move some equipment around for the final boss.
Yeah, right before the final fight.
He's going to want to remove his last dagger on his Black Mage since he no longer needs the Flea. And he's going to give him the Barbarian Sword as well as drop a ribbon on him for some extra protection. And a Sage Staff on the White Mage for the extra heal.
Did you just see Poorscythe try to park on that sand tile? Like, who does he think he is? My gosh. Making his way to the Mirage Tower.
-5 style points on Poorscythe.
Gets the emergency exit and thinks he can just park his airship wherever he wants. Now, big shot over here. My goodness. Mirage Tower is only a 3-floor tower. It typically isn't too bad, but some of the encounters are kind of annoying. But for the most part, pretty friendly area. Not very long.
I find it's one of two things. It's either very good or it's very bad, and it's entirely the encounter rate that determines that. The encounters themselves are, as Mutsky said, extremely safe. However, you could have a long stretch like Poorscythe just had with encounters, or you can have an encounter every 3 steps and lose a lot of time. And like this place can be a pain just in that regard, just in sheer quantity of encounters.
Now I feel bad. I opened my mouth and I said something, and then now things are happening. You know.
That looked like a pretty
his Kraken fight though. Hopefully he has a fairly nice one. Kraken's also not a particularly threatening boss fight. Drops a haste on his ninja thief here. Takes Kraken down in 1 turn. Really good fights. So we used the warp cube that we got from the other robot buddy to warp up here to the Flying Fortress, which is the final of the 4 crystal dungeons that we're going to have to visit. And Poorscythe is going to be making his way to Tiamat And probably Warmech.
This is another dungeon that the amount of time it takes you in here is just dependent on the encounter rate and or the quality of the encounters. Getting ambushes in here wastes a lot of time, but nothing in here is particularly terrifying, with the exception of the Warmech on the 5th floor.
Is it possible to even get an encounter with more than one evil eye in it, or is it always just a single evil eye?
As far as I'm aware, it's always just a single evil eye.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And that being the unrunnable is, relatively harmless in the grand scheme of both time and safety.
Yeah, what you don't want to see is like 6 Air Elemental Ambush or 7 Black Knight Ambush. Because those, just like in sheer number of attack animations that you have to see, will waste a lot of time. Poorscythe is having not the greatest Flying Fortress overall. It's a large number of encounters. Like, the fastest I've ever seen a Flying Fortress from start to finish was 48 seconds up until the boss. But it can take as long as 2.5 minutes depending on your encounter rate.
So T-Mat has a couple of full party attacks that he can use, like this one here, which is Thunderbolts. You put a damper on your fight relatively quickly, but fortunately, Poorscythe had a really good first round, and only the Black Mage was KO'd by the Thunderbolt, and makes pretty quick work of him, and no problems here.
So to answer a comment in chat, the reason why the Thief is so powerful in the PSP version of the game is because of the equipment glitch. So the Thief overall has very, very poor damage, but what it does have going for it is its higher agility. And the way agility is calculated into the damage calculation is the more agility you have, the more hits you can get off. Now, when you're able to only give the Thief equipable weapons, it's not all that great. But with the equipment glitch, allowing the Thief to equip heavier attack power or higher attack power weapons, those that are naturally equipped by the Warrior Knight, means the Thief can out DPS the Warrior because he has higher agility. And that's incredibly apparent when you give him the Barbarian Sword, which has the highest attack power in the game. Now, the ninja should not be able to equip this, but because he can and he has much more agility than the Warrior does, it makes him the MVP of the run as opposed to the Warrior. When you start looking at longer categories of the game, like all bosses, the all bosses route will take 2 thieves for the extra DPS, just because of the equipment glitch, and the Warrior is pretty much just there to act as a catalyst for the equipment glitch.
Shoutouts to Poorscythe's encounter right in front of the Chaos Shrine.
2 steps possible to get an encounter.
So this is the final dungeon that Poorscythe is entering. Meanwhile, Canucker is making his way south back to his airship so that he can do a couple of fetch quests before he goes to the Flying Fortress for himself.
The Chaos Shrine is an extremely nasty dungeon. There are an extreme amount of unrunnable encounters. A lot of them can do significant damage to your party. You're going to see him probably drop a save here. On the first floor, he's going to be worried about white dragons and purple worms. White dragons are not unrunnable, however, an ambush of them can be quite deadly, and we've seen that in previous tournament races. Purple worms, on the other hand, are unrunnable, and we have to slow down and fight them.
Here's the double dragons. If you're curious what the unrunnables are, if you want to follow along at home, they are the Death Eye Dragon Zombie, Earth Element, Fire Element, Green Dragon, Ice Gigas, Iron Golem, Purple Worms, and Water Element when it's by itself.
It's a large list.
And you don't deal with all of them the same way either, which is also kind of a lot to have on your plate. You have to kind of identify which encounter you've gotten, identify that it is on one of the unrunnables, and then what you need to do to dispatch it based on what it is and how many there are.
The nasty floor for those decisions is the one Poorscythe is on, and then the next floor, which is a mirror of the floor Poorscythe is on, as you have multiple unrunnable encounters on those floors that are dealt with differently. For example, on the water floor or the Kraken floor and the Lich floor, the unrunnables, it's only one unrunnable you'll get on that floor, and you deal with that in a particular way. It's a lot easier to remember.
And here's Poorscythe, who was just using that loot that we picked up at the very, very beginning of the game.
As we get closer to the final boss cat, Poorscythe is going to be looking at the HP rolls of his ninja and his black mage. This is important because Chaos has the ability to kill them. We picked up an item called the Giant's Tonic that will increase your max HP by 200 temporarily for one battle. And whether or not Poorscythe chooses to use it will be based on the amount of HP that those two characters have. Although with a lead as large as he does, there's probably no reason not to use them both anyway. So 1F Chaos Shrine, again it's Purple Worms, White Dragons. Purple Worms are the safe encounter, but you have to stop and fight them. White Dragons can be sketchy, but you can run away.
Canucker here fighting a Minotaur zombie on the way back to his airship before he flies over to the Mirage Tower and then warping to the Flying Fortress. So he'll be getting there shortly as Poorscythe taking care of some unrunnable Earth Elementals. Poorscythe's approaching the first of the four major boss refight.
It's a rough Lich floor for Poorscythe. Ideally, you get no unrunnables at all. Having two of them, his encounters be Earth Elementals, is rather unfortunate. It's probably not going to cost him in the grand scheme of things in the race itself, but if he's hoping to get a time under 130, he's going to want to not see those at all. So Lich 2 has an upgrade spell list from the first one. The first one, Blazari, can wipe your party. In this fight, Flare is terrifying to see and can happen if you don't kill him in the first round. Poorscythe is going to drop a haste on the ninja to ensure that the fight is 2 rounds. Yeah, that's why Flare is not very good. Thankfully, his warrior did enough damage to kill him that round.
I wasn't even sort of nervous.
It's really a damage roll. If you don't do enough damage on the first turn and he casts Flare, and then you don't do it, you underdamage him again on the second turn, it can go to a 3-round fight, and that is where it starts to get terrifying.
Poorscythe looked me in the eye before the race and said he wasn't going to let me down, so I felt pretty good that he was going to, Yeah,
unfortunately, Poorscythe does not have control over his character's damage ranges. But still, the faith is very important.
Canucker dispatching his forced blue dragon fight before he warps up to the Flying Fortress. Poorscythe entering the Merilith refight, which I tend to think is one of the safer of the Chaos Shrine fights. That and Kraken are both pretty nice.
Yeah, Merilith's main annoyances if she casts Firega, and that's more just the animation time it takes her to cast it than the amount of damage it does to you.
Yeah, it's just slow as molasses to sit through.
Poorscythe here on the Kraken floor does not want to see water elementals. A single encounter so far, halfway through the floor, is pretty good. Now he's got 2 no water elementals. Gotta be overjoyed about that. One of these snake, scorpion, troll encounters as an ambush, however, is a large time waste. You don't want to see one of those either. Overall, very good Kraken floor on Poorscythe's side. But it takes on average about 3.5 minutes to kill Chaos. He's going to want to have Tiamat down within very shortly if he wants to keep his 130 hopes alive. It's looking like a 130-30 to me. But
yeah,
Chaos
it
could
is
be nice.
a really, really short floor, though, which is nice.
It really depends on Chaos's physical attack pattern if he's going to get it at this point. Again, Tiamat can be a 3-round fight depending on damage rolls, and that's why you see Poorscythe throw out the haste here. And it will be a 3-round fight. Still under damage.
Tiamat on both screens right now. Canucker getting hit with a Thunderbolt. His Black Mage has really low HP. But should be alright to finish him off here. He gets another attack with the Thief, and he's going to make his way down to the Chaos Shrine now.
This Air Elemental Ambush killed a sub 130 time for Poorscythe's side.
But will he get the sub Krob? That's the real benchmark.
That is the benchmark. Heard that Mutsky will gift Poorscythe a free tier 1 sub in his channel if he bops him.
I would gift.
You heard it. You heard it here first.
I would gift Poorscythe a tier 1 sub to twitch.tv/Mutsky if Poorscythe wasn't already one of the most loyal
Subscribers.
channel subscribers of all time. Yeah. What a humble guy. All right, Canucker warping out of the Flying Fortress here. So he's just got his last travel to do on the airship, making his way to Chaos Shrine as Poorscythe is starting the Chaos fight. As Double mentioned before the fight began, a lot of the longevity of this fight largely depends on the attack pattern that Chaos uses. He has single enemy or single, I guess, party member physical attacks like he's just done to the Black Mage that are really short. Although killing him, but his AoEs are really, really long.
That's going to slow the fight down, but he's not going to bother to revive. There's probably little point. Although not getting the haste off might be tempting to still revive. Yeah, he's going to do it. I might have opted not to. Oh, just throwing down an ether. His ninja has haste. I think that's why he's doing this. However, he needs 15 MP to cast it, and so he does not have enough max MP to pull it off. There's just no reason for that ether. He may have actually intended to drop it onto the White Mage.
Yeah, that's actually possible because he's probably going to need one.
Yeah.
How much does Hilara
127 MP.
take? Is Hilara 15?
Yeah, looks like it. 15 or 20. Yeah, this is about as slow a chaos fight as you could possibly have.
Yep, here he is going to be dropping his ether on his white mage on this turn with the warrior, just to make sure that he can keep spamming his Hilaras.
So Chaos's special attack pattern, Blaze, Tsunami, Cyclone, is part of his rotation. However, he also has third level black magic, the August spells, and that has its own rotation as well, where after you see all of them, he will cast Kiraja on himself and heal himself for 9,999, which will prolong the fight. And that is what we don't want to see. And it is possible, with the amount of damage that he's outputting, that we do see that.
Especially with not having the hasted party members, the extra 10k HP is, you know, it's going to be several turns of damage long, unfortunately.
Having to ether the white mage every 2 turns too is prolonging the fight significantly.
Well, Canucker's made it into the time-traveled part of Chaos Shrine. He's on the first floor now, getting a nice party of white dragons.
Poorscythe is listening to the commentary and has decided to attempt the revive on his black mage. The earthquake gives him a free turn to heal him up. That's
fantastic.
That's perfect for him. Now he can get the haste out and start ramping up the damage. Did he just haste the white mage?
I think he may have hasted the white mage.
Yo, white mage DPS, let's go. Let me tell you, it's great in FF14. It is terrible in FF.
Unfortunately, this could actually be an issue if his white mage casts her Hilara before. Well, I guess if as long as she gets turn priority with the haste, I don't know if it actually affects it.
The haste won't affect your turn order. It just affects the amount of attacks that you get off.
Cool. So it shouldn't be an issue then.
No.
That's what I was curious, if she was going to cast her Hilara before Chaos actually took his turn. Purple Worm here for Canucker, dispatches him, and he's going to be making his way downtown to the Lich fight here. He's got about a floor and a few steps here left.
You can see the difference in that haste gives. That last attack the ninja did 2k, previously was only doing 800. It's like a massive increase in damage. And Poorscythe with a 132.45. That's a win for him.
Rolling in.
Let's see some GGs in chat for Poorscythe.
Let's see some GGs for that legendary Black Mage revive on the Earthquake turn. What a god.
So with this win, Poorscythe is going to move up to 2-1 and is still 1 win behind Boxmeister in Group B Cyclone. Canucker, on the other hand, moves to 1-2, will keep his current 3rd place position, having 1 less loss than Suko. Group B Cyclone is arguably the closest of all the groups right now.
So Canucker's hasting his thief here. Is going to be starting his attacks on Lich. Hopefully he gets a nice fight. Looks like he's got some solid damage output from his thief on that 2nd turn and takes care of him. No issue. Looks like we have the Victor double drop with me here. Poorscythe coming in hot. What's going on, Poorscythe?
Nice chaos fight, Poorscythe.
I mean, I don't know what to say about that. That's literally like the worst case is just that the Black Mage dies right off the bat for me.
You picked the right turn to revive him. I will give you that.
Yeah, I waited it out, and then, of course, I hasted the White Mage because I had it on the wrong... I thought he was on a different character when I went to issue that command.
Yeah, I saw as soon as you inputted the command, I was like, does he just haste the White Mage?
It's over. Chaos
It
can't hurt
is
me anymore.
over.
I mean, honestly, the run was fine. I was getting a lot of unrunnable encounters everywhere, but I thought I did really well and just kept doing little improvisations in some areas.
Yeah, it looked like Sunken Shrine, you got quite a few unrunnables. Fortunately, even with the ghosts that you were dropping Thundaras on, like they weren't really too much of like a pester of your time, really, as much as it was just like an inconvenience.
Yeah, nothing was dangerous there. I had to improvise. I went and got more antidotes because of how many times I got poisoned in the very early start.
Yeah, that was like one of your first encounters after buying them.
Yeah, I made a comment on that as well. I saw you pick them up and mentioned it was a nice heads up play by you, knowing that you had spent a significant chunk of your antidotes already.
I don't think I've ever had to do that before, and I didn't even know if that shop actually had antidotes. Thankfully, it did.
Yeah, you had to go there anyway for gold needles.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you were paying attention to what was going on the other side. Canucker has had
tense moments I saw.
party wipes, unfortunately.
He's had a run.
Yeah, I saw it when he was paralocked. And then down to the White Mage, and the White Mage was a champ and came out of that one.
Yeah, he got full party petrified right before Evil Eye sent him back to the start of Cavern of Ice. And that was the nail in the coffin. Like we thought there was a chance that he could claw it back, but once that happened, the gap got too wide.
Really, even after you used your emergency exit, and we obviously you had exited before he had begun to exit, so we could time exactly how long he was spending on his exit of the Cavern of Earth, and really you were only about like 2.5 or 3 minutes ahead at that point, so it wasn't like out of reach by any means, but then the ice
plotted up by Lich too. Like
just,
by the time he hit Lich, I think the gap had closed to a minute.
Yeah, he was entering his Lich fight when you were like warping out.
I mean, I was impressed at how quickly he was making up time on me in that. So I'm guessing he had a pretty solid second trip through Earth Cave.
But yeah, Ice Cave was pretty harsh on him, really. He had quite a few Pisca demons already, and then the cockatrice ambush was just, that's, you can just get completely crushed by that.
I mean, I had to contend with Double's Lone Dragon that was making a surprise appearance there.
My Lone Dragon played nice and didn't ice from you.
It would have
decided to just physical attack.
Yeah. I'm overall happy with that run. I'm just a little upset at how ugly that chaos fight was. But there's just not much I can do about it at that point. I was trying to be patient, but making little mistakes.
Hey, I think you should just turn it into a lesson of learning Chaos's spell patterns and trying to anticipate the earthquake.
He did that, and he also did Blizzaga, so I was safe either way, because he was either going to cast Earthquake or Slow, and nobody was hasted anyway, so it didn't matter.
Or he was going to physical attack.
But I had to just kind of drop the warrior off a couple rounds so he could ether and make sure I didn't run out of him. And of course, Canucks got the emergency exit. I'm guessing from a Purple Worm here.
Yep, that's the game from the Purple Worm.
All right, Canucker doing his final menu here before he enters his chaos fight.
Was that your first emergency exit?
In the tournament? I think first one, yeah. I went for it my last match and I didn't get it.
So before you popped in here, I was commenting on how close your group is, even after today. We've got a 3-1 box, 2-1 you. Canucker moves to 1-2, and Suiko is 1-3. So the gap between what will and will not make the group of 16 is very close.
Canucker, I'm guessing he's closed the gap a little bit here.
Yeah, his Chaos Shrine was actually pretty solid, and I imagine his biggest time save in the entire dungeon is going to be the Chaos fight on its own, unless something goes really poorly for him as well. But even if his is just like a pretty typically average fight, I think he'll make up quite a bit of time there.
Yeah, I lost a few minutes to that fiasco.
Probably
there.
about 2 minutes and 20 seconds is my estimation of how much Poorscythe lost to.
Well, his Black Mage is at risk here, though.
Oh, and he gets the Black Mage KO. Drops the Giant's Tonic on a corpse of a mage. And he chooses to just go for the quick. Yeah, he takes the quick soft reset.
That's probably a smart play, and just hope for a better opener.
I'm assuming you didn't do it because you didn't save, but I didn't see.
I don't generally find myself needing to save before him, but it's also rare that he specifically targets and kills the Black Mage on the first turn.
I mean, really, the only issue you have is if he targets and crits through your White Mage. Like that is
that's pretty much.
White Mage. Because that was your other thing that was causing you to lose so much time on the fight, was that every 2 turns you'd have to drop an ether on your White Mage in order to keep the Hilara cycling going.
Yeah, I mean, she typically only casts it about 6 times throughout the fight if it goes as planned, which means she only needs about 150 MP to cast that, and she's got more than enough for that if you're at full MP. But if it starts slowing down the fight, it's going to take a lot more rounds.
All right, it's going to get hit with the Blaze here. Hopefully his Black Mage can survive now that he's been Giant.
I also did a Healara on Tiamat too, because I forgot to heal before that fight.
That was a smart move. That was a very smart move.
That was a just-in-case thing.
I was terrified on Lich 2 you were going to under-damage of the second round.
Yeah, I was a little worried too. I usually either heal or save. I don't see the need in general to do both, but less experienced players may very well do both. Looks like he's got this fight under control now.
Yep. Gets his haste on all 3 of his members that are going to be attacking here. And he's just going to be spamming attacks with all 3 of them while White Mage is doing some cleanup with the Healara that she'll be casting each round.
So I remembered I had enough experience to get haste on my Thief, but I forgot to ether him beforehand, and I didn't know how much his max HP was, and I was like so upset when I saw it was 14 and not 15.
We saw you drop the ether and he had 14.
Because he would have been able to haste it. Yeah, just would have had to do it one at a time. It probably would have been worth it if he had enough MP.
Yeah, one more level or one more MP in a level up, and you could have just left the Black Mage on the ground if you wanted.
I didn't know how far into the fight I was at that point when I was like, let's try to get the Black Mage back up and get some more haste in there.
I was commenting if you left him down, you were probably going to see Kurja.
He didn't. I don't even think he got 2 spells into his spell order. He did all physicals or his whole special rotation.
All right, Canucker takes down Chaos with the Black Mage with a 143.30. Really, really well done for him, considering the luck that he had in the Ice Cave that set him back quite a bit. Had a really, really nice last half of the run. Had a quick reset on Chaos after a bad opening turn, but otherwise, really, really nice Chaos Shrine from start to finish.
I'm not in the SRL channel anymore. Do you know if Canucker is going to pop in here? Well, we wait to see if Canucker is going to pop in and do an interview with us. I'm going to take the time to mention, coming up later today at 2 p.m. Eastern on this channel, SG1, we're having Diddy Kong Racing. And as well, at the same time, over on SG2, we've got Binding of Isaac and Link's Awakening Warpless over on SG3. So definitely stick around, check it out. We've got three channels with 3 very, very cool games going on all at the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, in about an hour and 50. So make sure you guys check those out.
Especially, you don't want to miss the Diddy Kong Racing. One of 3 good games for the entire N64 console. This is definitely a can't miss event. Fantastic tournament. So check out the DKR in about an hour and some change.
Okay, it sounds like Canuckers has declined the interview.
All right, well, thanks for hanging out with us in the booth up here after your race. Glad you could get the win and get out of that a little bit of that scariness at the end there.
Well, thanks. Thank you guys for commentating. We know we've been having some lack of commentary on many of the races, and a lot of that's just due to the small size of our community, and everyone apparently seems to be working when everyone else likes to schedule their races.
Imagine working.
Imagine that.
Sounds awful.
Imagine having a job.
Yeah, you don't.
Wow. 2019?
2019, people with jobs. Imagine not being a Twitch partner in 2019.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It sounds awful, dude. I'm going to get a tattoo on my bicep of my check mark, obviously.
That way you can go to...
Thanks for checking out the race, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us. Congrats again to Poorscythe. We're going to sign off here, and like we said, in about an hour, DKR will be going on here. Binding of words. It's like the Shrunken Shrine. Binding of Isaac on SG2 and Link's Awakening. Warpless on SG3.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. See you guys next time.